Welcome to Bet On It. I am Kelly Stewart. It is week 15 in the NFL. Let's bring in Joe Raineri and Marco D'Angelo. Speaking of Marco, before we get started, just wanted to tell you guys about Marco's Marco Clause promotion, if you will. 30 days, all access pass from Marco. That's bowl games. That's NFL. That's everything. Normally $2.99. You get it for right now, just $1.99. Coupon code MD199. Marco's been crushing it. Last year, killed the bowl games, 13-4, little net profit, almost $3,400, and 43-22 in the last 18 days over at WagerTalk.com. So shout out to Marco. I don't ever say enough nice stuff about him on the show, so I thought I would give him a nice little plug for all of you at home. Marco, welcome in. I don't know where the hell this NFL season went, but it is almost gone. And now we kind of get to sift through. This is the kind of the turning point, if you will, guys, where the cream is starting to rise to the top, and I think we saw it in person with our producer Dan's Eagles on Sunday. That was a rough one for me as a Giants +7 backer, but we're going to start to see a couple interesting things that are really going to decide not only who is sitting home for the playoffs, who makes the wild card, and a lot of that's going to come into play over the next 4 weeks. So it's going to be fun to handicap, but Marco, I wanted to ask you first, how do you approach this last quarter of the NFL season?
Well, Kelly, there are two things you need to know. We're going to hear a ton in the next coming weeks of must-win games. Remember, just because it's a must-win doesn't mean they're going to get there. And also remember, the books know it's a must-win also. You're going to pay a price for those teams that are in must-win situations. So be careful with that. You're not going to get good value, and a lot of times the value is on the other side, taking the dog, because too often when it gets down to the end of the season, and it is a win and you're in, they tighten up a little bit. They play not to lose sometimes instead of playing to win, and we know that never works out when you're laying points. Also, tip I'd give people is don't look at the full body of work for the season. Teams go through ebb and flows through a 16, 17-week season. Look at what's happening more recent. That's a truer tell. You might have had injuries earlier in the year. You might have, we're going to talk about games where there's a coach that was fired. They put their quarterback on the front yard free to a good home, and they traded away their best player. And guess what? They control their own destiny to the playoffs. So it is a weird year in the NFL, but the math guys got it right last week. Minnesota's been playing over their head, and Jacksonville can't continue to play as bad as their record indicates, and they both got there last week. So, as I said on Monday, broken clock is right twice a day, too.
Oh, boy. Marco, one of the things going back to the must-win is don't forget, there's plenty of maybe divisional opponents or teams that hate one another that know they're already staying home. And what a feeling to at least get to play spoiler because the team that you despise more than any other has to sit on that same couch with you. Joe, give some advice to our listeners about how you're going to navigate the next couple of weeks.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we've got enough data, right, in these games to try and pull some information out. I think parity in many aspects of the NFL is alive and well. And if you just look at how dogs have cashed this year, how divisional dogs have cashed this year, how unders in divisional matchups, especially the one outdoors, have cashed. We've seen a lot of very profitable trends this year start to emerge, and I don't really think anything in these final 4 weeks here, 3-4 weeks. I'm not sure there's a whole lot that's going to go against the grain in a lot of these trends that we've cashed tickets over 60% in. And I think that's probably not a bad blueprint to continue to follow as we finish up these last few games of the season.
Good stuff. Let's get started. Thursday night football. We've got ourselves a divisional game. That's right. We have the 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Just 3.5-point home underdogs. Total 43.5. Already bet the under. Full disclosure, of course I did. These divisional unders still hitting at a little bit over a 60% clip on the season, courtesy of Ralph Michaels for that one. Mark, I'm going to go to you first here. Slight lean towards Seattle, but I never like to have two outcomes needed in the game. So I would never really, very rarely bet a side in the total. So because I'm on the under, give me a reason to back one of the sides.
Well, Kelly, I thought for sure you'd be on that primetime home dog, but I understand it's never fun betting an under and betting a side in the same game. That is just pure torture to do. And if I do that, and I have on a few occasions, I just can't watch the football game because you want points for your team, but you don't want too many points for the under, and I just can't afford to lose any more hair. With that said, I am on the primetime home dog. And the situation is, if you remember last week, my sandwich game was Carolina against this very same Seattle team. And my best bet last week was San Francisco because they fit the injured player theory. Well, what happens this week? Let's start with that injured player theory. I go with the injured team the first week because everybody plays at a higher intensity level to try to compensate for the loss. And they're focused, a game plan designed to benefit the quarterback, Brock Purdy, and he did a great job last week. Got a little banged up, took him out in the fourth quarter because they had such a big lead. Now he's got to turn around and come back on a short week and on the road, which you lose a little more prep time because you got to put the factor of the travel in there as well. This is a spot where I like to go against that injured team in game two because they had that big push. Everybody played at a different level. Then you can exhale and say, hey, you know what? This isn't so bad. We're okay with Brock Purdy. Now, I will say there is an asterisk to that. I would have preferred this not be a standalone Thursday night game. That might keep them focused because it is a division game. But if my whole reason for going against Seattle last week with Carolina was they were looking ahead to this one, well then, damn it, I got to be there on Seattle this week because that's what happens in a sandwich game. This is the one they were looking to. I think they pull out all the stops. They've got nothing to lose. They are fighting for their playoff lives. They are not out of the race in the NFC West. So big game for them. And I think, you as much as you may like or don't like Pete Carroll, this year has been one of his best coaching jobs where nobody, and if you find me somebody that said they thought Seattle was going to be over 500 this year, they're lying, okay? Nobody thought that.
Yeah, as Twitter likes to say, show me your tickets, because I don't believe that there's been very many people out there, outside of maybe a couple of Seattle fans, looking for a bright spot. Joe, I do agree with Marco, slight lean here towards the dog, and that's just because of recent history. I mean, they've won 12 of the last 14 at home against this Niners team, but obviously they're usually the favorite. Geno Smith shown me some greatness this year, but man, Brock Purdy looked good. He basically played a perfect game last week. Do you think he can keep it up here on Thursday night?
And, so much for the rookie thing. He dropped him back through 21 passes. I mean, so there's obviously a comfort level there with Shanahan and Brock Purdy. And it shows, but it helps when you have this guy, Christian McCaffrey behind you and the weapons that they have in George Kittle and that offensive line. And while they won't have Deebo Samuel this week, Brandon Ayuk had no problem stepping up when he was taken out of the game last week. They have more weapons than they know what to do with. So I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times, Cal. I don't think it matters who the quarterback is with this 49ers team. Having said that, the trends, Marco pointed it out, this is not good for the 49ers. Thursday night, coming off a big blowout win like they did against Tampa. You've got a back against the wall Seattle team here who, they're down, 2 games to the 49ers? So they're 2 games clear. You got to wonder, how much is the Shanahan going to push the envelope in this game? How far is he willing to go when push comes to shove to try and get this win against Seattle? I don't know. We're going to see 25, 30 passes this week from Brock Purdy. I think they're going to do a hell of a job of trying to keep the ball on the ground and keep Geno Smith and that offense on the sideline. We saw this game already, week 2? 27-7, right? I say that because very familiar foes in a kind of game that I think we're not going to get a whole lot different here. We had 34 points in the first game. The total is 43 and a half in this game. We ain't getting over. Like, Seattle is not somehow going to confuse this 49er defense. Thursday night, prime time, divisional unders, what'd we say, 29 and 14, or 64 and 42 rather so far this year are these divisional unders. If they're outdoors, 29 and 14. That's 60% and 67% Thursday night unders. I don't think we're going to get anything different scoring-wise than what we got in the first game, and that's why I'm looking at the under in this one as well, under 43 and a half.
Heck yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Joe, I'm going right back to the well with you with another game that I bet under Saturday night prime time. Miami is a 7.5-point dog at Buffalo. Total 42. Yeah, look, I just blindly betting these unders, and they've been profitable all season long, so I'm going to keep doing it, even though they were 3-4 last weekend. We have 5 of them for this weekend, Joe, and this is one of them.
Yes, it is. And I was at the Buffalo Jet game on Sunday, Cal, as you know, and when I woke up and it was, 19 degrees and it was snowing and sleeting, left and right, I was going, wow, this probably a good game for an under. What do you think? And it turned out to be that way. But a couple of things I noticed watching this Buffalo team at home in that stadium. They scored on 4 consecutive drives, I believe, against the Jets at one point in that game, and they still couldn't put them away. And I thought they played a really, really good game, the Buffalo Bills did. But there's still something not clicking with this offense just yet. Couple that with the idea, Cal, that this opened up at 7, and then all of a sudden the hook has become available. 7.5's out there. Divisional matchup, revenge spot for Buffalo. Obviously, we know that. But we have the 3rd straight away game for the Miami Dolphins. They are a loss in this game, and the remaining schedule they have, they could go from, hey, we're going to battle with Buffalo to win the AFC East to, yeah, you're golfing, you're not even going to make the playoffs. That's how bad this could go really quickly. So, not to mention the weather, another nor'easter up there. The conditions are going to be horrible. But divisional unders with a lot of weapons still available to Miami. I mean, giving the hook out there at 7.5, it's just too much to me. I have no problem grabbing to 7.5 and thinking that Miami, although they are not going to win this game, I don't see that they're going to win this game, but I also don't see them getting blown out. Not from what I saw with this Buffalo offense in person. If they were going to blow anybody out, it would have been the Jets, and they couldn't do that. They couldn't put them away. I don't think they're going to be able to create a whole lot of separation from the Dolphins. I'll take the 7.5 in this one and go against the grain.
Marco, the biggest key to beating this Josh Allen-led Bills team is capitalizing off his turnovers. Josh Allen plays a perfect game, they win the game. Josh Allen throws a couple of picks, we see Minnesota 2.0. Your thoughts on the Dolphins? Do you think they can keep it close or maybe spring the upset?
A couple things to comment on. The turnovers, you're absolutely right, Kelly. In the last 2 games, in the 4-game winning streak, they've only had 2 turnovers. You go back the previous 6 games for Buffalo, they had 13 turnovers. And that's what happens when you get beat. Joe mentioned revenge. I'm going to point out that first game. And that's something I look at whenever we are looking at the second meetings. Because obviously, every second meeting in the NFL, it's a revenge game for somebody. Okay?
Hold on one second. Let me ask Marco. Marco, it's the math guys. They want to know how you guys quantify revenge.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good question.
I love those guys.
I should have never gave them my phone number. I'm so sorry.
Game, Kelly, it's great because revenge is overused. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to revenge every loss. But if you look at when they played and what they played coming into that game, the Buffalo Bills were as fat and sassy as you could possibly be. It was the 3rd game of the season. Do you remember their first 2 games of the season? They opened on Thursday night against the Rams, the Super Bowl champs, and just absolutely smacked the shit out of them in that game. Mm-hmm. And then what do? They come back, the following week on Monday Night Football and smack around another team. I think it was Minnesota, wasn't it?
Yep.
They won big on Monday Night Football. Oh, I'm sorry, Tennessee. Same thing. Math guys, they both say both those teams are overrated. But one's the other. But then they played Miami. You win your first two games by a combined score of 72-17, and you're a favorite on the road. Bad things happen, and it did to them. Miami came back, stole the win. I'm looking at this Miami team, and we talked about how you proceed in the final, quarter of the season. You got to look at current form, and right now, I think the two teams are going in opposite directions. Miami was held to 17 points 2 weeks ago to San Francisco. I get that. The 49ers have, if not the best, one of the best defenses in the NFL. But last week, you get held to 17 points to the Chargers, you got problems, okay? The Chargers are pure trash on defense. I'm looking at this Buffalo team. As Joe said, third game in a row on the road. You don't see that happen very often anymore in the NFL, but you're taking a warm weather team from Miami who just played 2 weeks out on the West Coast. They stayed out there for the second game, and now you're going to Buffalo in late December. Joe, how was that? How was middle of December in Buffalo? Didn't look very good. Did you stay for the whole game or leave at halftime? That's the big question.
Yeah, that's some intimidating shrinkage in that weather, Marco. That is not fun. It's just a mess. Once you get to 19 degrees, and with Tua never having played a game less than 36 degrees, he's in for a treat in this one.
Sometimes
I lean to Buffalo in this game, Kelly, but I see that 7.5 up there, and I see a way to make it just win the game, basically. We'll take the 6 points off there, and I'll use them in teasers. You'll see this one pop up in the next segment as part of my teaser.
Yep.
I did the same thing. All right, Sunday primetime, Marco, I'm kicking it right back to you. New York Giants at the Washington Football Commanders. Commanders are 4.5-point favorites. Total 40. I took the under. The end. That's all we got to say. Another under. Everybody's going to hate me.
You know what? The first game went under, and I know there were a lot of people when that game went to overtime said, "Oh no, we know what's going to happen to
those are the times I need to remember, Marco. I always remember the bad beats or the ass kickings or whatever.
Yep.
I need to be like, gambling gods, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I got very, very lucky with that one.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this one, and for Washington, they're playing the Giants in back-to-back games. The only difference is they had a week off. They were on their bye week, where the Giants played last week. And we talk about, buy low, sell high. Well, right now, the stock on Washington is high because they've won, 6 of their last 7 games. The stock on the Giants are at their low point of the season now because they've lost 3 games in a row and tied that one with Washington. And they got absolutely annihilated. I don't have to remind you about that, Kelly, last week in Philadelphia. Dan was happy with that. But you come off a 48-22 spanking, and Washington's coming off their bye. This is going to be a popular play, I think, with John Q. Public on the Washington Redskins. I'm going to take the Giants plus the points here. And I actually think the bye week was a negative. The plus is, when you get a bye late in the season, you got guys that are a little bit banged up, you get them healthy. But when you're on a roll like Washington was, the last thing you want to do is have a week off. It breaks momentum. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Giants plus the points for Sunday Night Football. And trust me, going into Sunday night, if you're going to play the Giants, I don't have a problem with you waiting till later in the week. The line was 4.5. We saw 5s. I could see this getting pushed to 6 on game day because the line was 2.5 in New York. What are they doing with this line? Doesn't it smell a little fishy? Should be a little bit higher. I'm going to go ahead, take the Giants plus the points. Maybe this will make Ariel's fishy line on Sunday.
It might. And you know what else is fishy? I always accuse you of stealing me and Joe's plays. Now I know you're stealing my script because you took exactly the words out of my mouth about the momentum killer with the bye week. Good stuff, Marco, as always. He is right. When you have a team that's rolling, that is not that injured, I think it totally kills your momentum here. I do lean towards the Giants, Joe. Let's just hope we're going to catch another under by the grace of the gambling gods.
Oh, well, you know that. There are a couple of intriguing trends here. We'll start from 2019 when you have divisional teams meet. The home field advantage. Is there any home field advantage? Well, actually, 16-7 straight up to the home team, 16-6-1 against the number, 72% for the home team. So Sunday night, primetime, divisional matchups have certainly favored the home team. And in this case, that would be Washington here. But you mentioned it. Coming off a bye, Washington in their post-bye weeks, just 4-10, Cal, straight up, 2-12 against the number in their last 14 games coming out of a bye. So I'm with you. I see these two teams who played to a tie, and they were lucky on that because of some dumb mistakes in that game by both teams. I think that will get cleaned up. I don't see this thing getting over 40.5 in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't be running to the window to lay 4.5. With this Washington team, but I would absolutely look at a possible first half under, team total under, full game under situation here with these two teams.
Love it. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, you guys know what time it is.
First time tuning into WagerTalk TV? How would you like a one-day all-access Picks Pass for only $1? Well, we have you covered. Bet On It gets 100,000 plus downloads, views, and listens each and every week across all platforms. From YouTube to Spotify, from Apple TV to iHeartRadio. So there's a good chance this is the first time you are tuning in, and an even better chance that you have not experienced the professional handicappers at WagerTalk and Sports Memo. And we want to change that. Whether you are new to sports betting or just tired of the game of the year and 100-unit locks, we have you covered. We leave all that nonsense for the other guys, as you won't find that here. As the most popular show on WagerTalk TV, we would like to offer all Bet On It viewers that have not made a purchase at WagerTalk.com or SportsMemo.com this special offer. Use coupon WIN1 on a $39 one-day all-access pass and get it for only $1. So to all first-time users, just use coupon code WIN1 to get your first ever purchase at WagerTalk or SportsMemo for only $1. And welcome to the family.
The glasses tell you all you need to know, and that's because we're waiting for some of those nerd charts from Mr. Ralph Michaels. Welcome in, Ralph, at Cal Sports LV. Before we get started, Ralph, the man with the pen, the man with all the trends and angles, what do you have over at WagerTalk.com for us this week?
Well, the magical NFL season continues. How about a 70% performance on the year? 38-16-1, 70.4%. My NFL plays 4% and higher, 75%. My NFL totals on an 11-1, 92% run. And simply, I want you on board for the rest of the NFL season. If you go to WagerTalk and you go to my homepage, you'll see the NFL season is $249. Use code NFL100. You'll save $100, get the rest of the regular season, the playoffs, all the way through the Super Bowl for $149. If you do want to include 4 weeks of NFL with my college football, my college basketball, my NBA, you can also use that NFL 100 off a 30-day all access. So any package over $249, you can either choose my NFL for $149 or get a 30-day package for $199. That coupon code again, NFL 100.
Awesome, Ralph. I love that you're having such a great season. NFL for me has been a little bit on the roller coaster ride. We know we've got some of those divisional unders coming up again this week, but you've got 4 NFL systems, I've been told, before you're going to allow me to read this nerd chart.
Well, let's say we have a winning team, Kelly. They're off back-to-back losses where they failed to cover, and their opponent's off a win. So that's Tennessee. Tennessee Titans have a winning record. Tennessee Titans off back-to-back-to-back losses where they failed to cover. So you're 0-3 straight up in ATS your last 3 games, and your opponent's off a win. Those teams like the Chargers have covered 70.3%. You got those wins for a reason. You're a good team. You're now off 3 straight losses. You're hungry and you're fired up. Teams like the Tennessee Titans, again, 70.3% against the spread. And when it happens late in the year, game number 9 or later, like we're into, that system raises to 76.5%. So the exact same system, both say to play Tennessee. One gives you the entire season. One takes the last third of the season from game 9 on. I'm not sure this has a ton of merit, but I had to look it up. Isn't it great that we start NFL games on Saturday now? So what do Saturday home favorites do? I go back and I look at Saturday home favorites the last 10 years, and they are 41.7%. That surprised me. Late in the year, you're at home, the opponent's on a short week, you only cover 41.7% of the time. That's the Vikings, the Browns, and the Bills are the home teams this week. And this one even shocks me more. Let's say those teams, and all three were home last week, you're home on a short week again, that number goes down to 32.1%. So this isn't what I expected. I expected a short week at home late in the year in December on Saturday. The home team was a positive. It's a 41.7% play. And if that team's home for a second straight game, it's only 32.1%. That applies to Minnesota, Cleveland, and Buffalo. 2 more before we get to your nerd chart. This is one I repeated. It's got a decent record. I wanted to remind you. When you scored 21 points or fewer before your bye and now you're at home, how many people say, oh, this team is rested and at home, they're ready to roll and bounce back, they have this late season bye? The teams like the Bears, the Saints, and the Commanders all scored 21 or fewer points prior to their bye, and now they're at home after the bye. They have gone 27-50, 35.1%. And this one, I took from Mark Lawrence's playbook, so I have to give him a shout out. I tweaked it a little bit. And again, this is another one that surprised the heck out of me. The Dallas Cowboys just played 3 straight home games. Now you're a non-division favorite against the Jaguars, and you're late in the season, game number 10 or later. So you're home, you're rested, you're feeling good like Dallas is. You're the better team on the road as an away favorite. You're playing a non-division foe. Those teams have gone 5-21, 19.2%. And I believe the Cowboys also have Philadelphia on deck. So if you're looking to fade the Cowboys, they're in a very ugly situation, which Marco would call a sandwich spot off an in-state game against Houston and their rival Philadelphia on deck.
We're going to kick Ralph out of here. We're going to bring him back in, Marco, for those teasers since my teaser on Monday night didn't look so well. Welcome back in, Marco and Joe. Let's hear what you got for NFL Week 15. Joe, you missed this, but on Monday's show when Ariel filled in for you, I said I had an excessive amount of teasers with the Arizona Cardinals, and by all means, It looked great at half. So now I got to start my teaser legs over again for this week. Pittsburgh Steelers, Marco, maybe did they make your teaser leg this week?
They are the typical Wong teaser, no question about it, Kelly. And going back to Monday, I think we talked about should have hedged some of that on the money line with New England. I don't – all those teasers you had, I'm just saying. But for me, you got the first leg already.
Don't make me call the math guys, Marco.
Down to 1.5. The second leg, I'm going to go with Baltimore. They were good to us last week. Against the mentioned Pittsburgh Steelers, as we said, they're going to keep the game close. And we talked about the comparison with Huntley to Lamar Jackson. Granted, he's not Lamar Jackson, but what he is the same style of quarterback. They don't have to put a separate game plan in for him than they ran all year for Lamar Jackson. So I'm going to go with Baltimore once again. And I'm going to let Cleveland find a way to stick it to me again, whether I'm with them or against them. I've had some ugly ones with Cleveland, but even if the good Cleveland shows up today, Stefanski's going to find somehow, some way to make a mistake to keep Baltimore in this game. I don't see it as a 2-score game. I am going to take Baltimore, tease them up to 8, 8.5, whatever the number's sitting at, with Buffalo down to 1.5. That is my teaser for this week.
I don't hate that, Marco. I also have those same teasers. Now, I had a couple of comments regarding my teasers on Monday night, Joe, and I think we need a little refresher. What a Wong teaser is. That is 2 teams, 6 points. We're looking for low totals, going through key numbers, which, well, Ralph just kind of obliterated some of those, but they're still very relevant. 3 and 7 are still very relevant numbers in the NFL. So every once in a while we go a little non-traditional. Where are we going this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There was, and I agreed with obviously the move down with Buffalo with Marco. I have no problem with that. I do think Baltimore, to me, for the second straight week, is the idea that they're going to be a dog against a Browns team who just can't seem to beat them in any way, shape, or form, and they have not been able to do it, not under Stefanski or anybody else going back 100 years. I do think the Ravens will give you a great opportunity there to tease that thing up and over a touchdown there, hovering around that 8.5. Love that. I do love Pittsburgh. You mentioned it, Kel. I think that is a game we're going to have a low total, much like the Baltimore game. Obviously, low total in here, but 37.5 against Carolina, who I think is going to have a chance to win this game, obviously, because they can run the ball. And if we noticed anything last week about Pittsburgh, and Marco will test this, I thought they used to be able to stop the run, Marco. They can't get off the damn field. And undisciplined, like how many penalties are you going to keep giving teams life on? So Pittsburgh, unfortunately, defensively can't be trusted. But at a total like this is going to come down to maybe a final possession type of game. And I would love to have anything over a touchdown at this point with the dog, in this case, Pittsburgh. But I would not sleep on, you mentioned non-traditional, getting Green Bay to a 0.5 point on Monday night against the Rams may not be a bad look for Aaron Rodgers' swan song in Green Bay.
Swan song. There was a really funny tweet today by a radio station in Milwaukee asking if people are bothered by Aaron Rodgers' use of ayahuasca. I started laughing very hard. Love me some Aaron Rodgers. I don't know where I was going with that, but I just thought it was a funny poll, because why do you give a shit? Anyway, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And speaking of getting high, we're going to find out if Joe's a little stoned when we come back.
Do you want to bet this college football bowl season alongside Dave Koken and Ralph Michaels? Well, we have you covered. When you look among the list of our handicappers, some are known more for specific sports, and when you mention college football, two that jump out are Dave Koken and Ralph Michaels. Mr. Dave Koken has been the all-time profit leader in college football since he joined WagerTalk, and while the regular seasons have been profitable, his performance in the Bowls have been even better, going 45-22-1. That's 67%. Ralph Michaels was a previous general manager of Phil Steele Publications, voting on all significant college football awards, including the Heisman Trophy, before joining WagerTalk. Ralph's run and bowl action has been stellar, going 44-20. That's 69%. Our bowl package price will be $199 with the $149 early bird. You can lock in Dave and Ralph's both for only $198, coming out to just $99 each. That's Dave's 68% and Ralph's 69% bowl records, including any 5% best bets released in bowl season, for just $198. Access will cover any college football releases from the Bahama Bowl on Friday, December 16th, through the College Football Playoff National Championship game on Monday, January 9th, from both Ralph Michaels and Dave Koken, and include any 5% best bets. So act fast before pricing goes back to regular price.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Before we figure out what Joe is smoking on, we got to see if Marco is going to feed us. Marco, is the deli back open?
Deli's back open, Kelly. And how about that Carolina sandwich last week? You scoffed at the beginning, but I think you got there and had that hoagie with me on Sunday. And this is a perfect example of the same situation. We went against Seattle last week with Carolina because of a sandwich spot game before and the game coming up. Well, let's do the same thing this week. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. And we talk about teams, you want to get them when they're overvalued or undervalued. Well, right now, can the Eagles be, excuse the pun, any higher, flying high right now? Fly, Eagles, fly. Well, you know what? I'm stepping in front of them. We got Chicago coming off a bye week. Now, we just talked about momentum stoppers. Yeah, when you're winning, the last thing you want to do is take a week off. But when you've lost 6 in a row, yeah, you want that break because you want to get back to the drawing board, create some new X's and O's, and get your banged-up quarterback back, Justin Fields. That's what we're going to have this week. But the flip side to that is Philly come off a monumental win, scoring 48 points last week against division rival, the Giants, as you saw, Kelly. Next week, who do they play? They play Dallas. You're going to play 3 straight games in a row on the road. One of them's at New York, your division rival, and the other one is your hated rival, Dallas. You're going to look past the Chicago team. You're going to go in there and I think just feel like you got to show up and you're going to win. 9 points is way too many points in this one for a team coming off the bye that had 2 weeks to prepare a game plan for this single opponent. And again, you're losing. You're going to work on things to fix. When you're winning, what do you fix? Everything's working. That's why I don't like taking teams that are winning off the bye week, but I love taking teams that are losing off the bye week. Take Chicago. And just because I don't want to totally, irritate our producer, I'm calling it Philadelphia 24-23. That works with the +9.
Ooh.
Joe, I hope you got some really good shit because I don't know if I can bet against the Eagles again 2 weeks in a row.
Nope. No, yeah. I'm done with that, man. As Dan just tells everyone, by the way, he bets on the other team, but he's secretly holding tickets on the Eagle every week. Just want everyone to understand what our producer does here. All right, I am actually. I think I'm a little too high this week, Cal, and yes, it's a low total. But it ain't low enough here, Cal, and I'm looking at the Ravens taking on the Browns in what in all likelihood is going to be a 13-10 game. If we're lucky, it's going to be 13-10. Has anybody seen Deshaun Watson play football? Has anybody seen him, what he looks like at all now in 8 quarters? And what do we got, 16 points, and actually most of the points his team scores is because either the defense or the special teams, somewhere in there. It's got absolutely nothing to do with what Deshaun Watson brings to the table. You spend $200 million on a dude who just made you worse, and that's saying something because Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback prior, and they were actually feasible, and you could get away with it. Can't get away with it here. You're not going to get away with it stopping the run on this Ravens teams. Dobbins, Edwards, you name it. I don't care who the quarterback is for the Ravens. The path to a victory and success for them continues to be run the ball. And if we've seen anything from the Browns, forget them offensively, defensively, man, that run defense has been leaking a lot here. I don't see how they're going to be able to tolerate the number 1 rushing offense here in the NFL right now with the Ravens. I think this is going to be ground and pound. Deshaun Watson is not going to have a whole lot of time if he thinks he's just going to hang out back there. His timing is not there. They're going to have to try to match the Ravens yard for yard with rushing the ball, and I just don't see any scenario in which we get over 35 points here. I do think this is a 16-10, 13-10 kind of game, a typical December AFC matchup, and I got no problem still taking the under because to me, 38, 37 and a half, way too high in this one, Cal, still.
Well, I hope you're sharing because taking the under in that one is terrifying almost as much as, taking Marco's. I'm not even saying
Eagles.
Okay, sandwich. Can't wait. It's time for barking dogs. Marco, are you on the Bears? Are they barking?
Ooh. Woof.
Oh, Kelly, just remember that ugly one last week got the money. We've got, speaking of ugly, Tennessee. We're going to go to Tennessee at the Chargers. And I know Tennessee has looked horrible the last 3 weeks. 3 straight losses. They scored 16, 10, and 22 points the last 3 games. Now, granted, the 20-16 loss to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's streaking right now. Philadelphia, we know what they're doing right now. They're blowing people out. They lose 35-10 to them. But last week's game is the game that has everybody concerned. and all the math guys were jumping up and down, told you Jacksonville wasn't that bad. Yes, you're right. And it took 4 turnovers by Tennessee to get you home in that game. 4 turnovers last week to 0 for Jacksonville. You're never going to win an NFL game with that many turnovers. Now, but what I take from that game and what I like and sets this play up this week, nobody's going to want Tennessee the way they've played. Now we're getting Tennessee as an underdog to the Chargers. Tennessee in the last game finally went back and got Derrick Henry in the mix. 117 yards he had last week. They had a total of 137 on the ground. Why does that excite me? Because they're going to be facing the worst defense in the NFL at stopping the run. Take Tannehill out of the equation. Run the football. Set up the pass game with play action. We do not want to see 38, 36, 35 passes from Ryan Tannehill. You're not winning that way. Derrick Henry is your stud. He's your horse. That's what you built this team around. Use him in this one. They win it outright in L.A. I'm taking Tennessee plus the points. And don't forget to sprinkle because I'm calling for the outright win, 31-27.
Just a big set on Marco right there. 3-point underdog, outright winner. Joe, tell me yours is bigger than Marco's.
Well, his is pretty, that is some ugly. That was really disgusting. But I got news for you here. Mine's, I'm going to go just a tad bigger here, Marco. And you can give me the Jacksonville Jaguars to handle business against the Dallas Cowboys, who continue to be, guess what? Overrated. That's right. They continue to be overrated. What's that, Dan? What's that? Eagles Rock? Yes, Dan, Eagles Rock. I get you. But yes, I'm going to be looking at the Jags to be able I think there's going to be some points in this game here, but I think this is right around the time of the year where we got to start looking at this Cowboys team, who has not been, shall we say, great. That game against Houston last week, not great. Now they got to go on the road to Jacksonville. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back with Jacksonville this season, right? Every time we think Peterson and Trevor Lawrence seem to be getting on the same page, they look great, then they take 2 steps back. I think this is going to be one of these situations where Marco talked about it here, that they are capable of what we saw last week, both defensively and offensively. If they bring that same level of success there, or something even close to it in this game against Dallas, who's going to be on the road outdoors, they got a chance not only to cover this game, but I think absolutely win it here. Not a big believer in the Cowboys at this particular point. I do think they've got a couple of losses lining up here down the stretch. And would it shock me if Jacksonville beat them? Absolutely not. So I am going to take a flyer here and say Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, they're going to take that next step again and put back-to-back great performances together. I think they can hang with this Cowboys team. I think there's going to be a ton of points, but I'm willing to take the 4 right now and back Jacksonville as a dog.
Both barking dogs were in contention for my best bet. Coincidence? Probably not. So I am in agreement with both of you guys there. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, it's time to see what Ariel and Andy are up to in the prop shop.
Woo.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
Welcome back to Bet On It. Time for Prop Shop. And we got the pirate to the left of me, Andy Lang. Looking good, Andy. Looks like we had a very successful surgery. So happy you are back and smiling. Ariel Epstein, per usual. Hope she doesn't have to see me again for another 6 months. But let's get into it. Thursday night, we've got some best bets coming up for you. But before we get there, I want to know what we're looking at in terms of prop bets for Sunday. Andy Lang, 16-5 in his 5% plays, just absolutely crushing. Bad beat with Stevenson, obviously, on Monday, but we're going to bounce right back here on Sunday. So let everybody know what they can get from you over at WagerTalk.com.
Kelly, thank you for the pirate joke. Yes, I am doing well, doing better than a Jameis Winston over. Let's take a look at some. Let's take a look at some plays here. Let's take a look at some running back props to look at. Let's take a look at Dalvin Cook. He's got a great matchup. The Colts have really fallen apart, the rush defense. They've given up 177.7 yards per game on the ground the last three. Dalvin Cook has struggled. That offensive line has struggled, but this Colts rush defense might be just what the doctor ordered for Dalvin Cook. Also, you got to look at Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, the Giants. It's another team that's fallen apart in the rush defense. Just recently, Robinson ran for 96 yards. Antonio Gibson only had 9 carries for 36 yards in that game, but it was only a couple games ago, so look for Washington to be able to run on the Giants. And then a prop that we cashed last weekend, it's kind of two props broken up, but take a look at Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott to both score a touchdown. These guys have combined for 15 touchdowns the last 6 games, and the Jaguars have allowed 4 rushing touchdowns the last 3. When Dallas gets in close, they are running the ball, and it looks like they're making a really obvious effort to make sure both of these guys score. It's cashed the last 2 weeks. We barely got there against the Houston Texans. But if you sprinkle a couple units on Pollard and a couple units on Zeke, surely one of them is going to score, and if both of them score, you get a really, really nice cash. Find it hard to believe that Jacksonville is going to keep both of them out of the end zone. So maybe get sneaky and sprinkle a couple units on Pollard and Zeke to both score.
All right, I like it there, Mr. Lang. Ariel Epstein, there were some shots fired, but they weren't by you. So I'm going to keep my insults to myself right now. You've been crushing props. Saw it live in person on Sunday with our producer, Dan. Absolutely electric time at MetLife Stadium. Now that I'm finally recovered, I think, I want to know what we're betting on Sunday.
So for Sunday's slate, there are a few different spots that you could look at, even at that game Andy was referring to. The Cowboys, on the other hand, defensively, they do allow for the 10th most receiving yards to running backs. Could get a low number on Jaguars running back Travis Etienne, who hasn't been catching many balls out of the backfield lately, but I still like it. I would also look to that Baltimore-Cleveland game and the potential of fading either the Cleveland running backs because the Ravens do allow for top 10 least yards per game to running backs, in addition to the tight end position where the Ravens have actually really excelled. And one other place that you could fade tight ends, which Atlanta's tight end Kyle Pitts, and my eye is tearing because Kelly had me like crying before this segment started. The Atlanta Falcons do not have Kyle Pitts anymore this season. However, the Saints have been a top 5 unit against tight ends. Their linebacker Pete Werner is questionable. As long as Werner plays, you fade any tight end that faces the Saints this year. When Werner's out, tight ends do have more success. It is more of his job to protect against protect against tight ends. So I would just keep an eye out for Werner, and if he's in, fade anybody who faces the Saints that's a tight end.
All right, I'm just glad I can make somebody in my life laugh. Andy, as
I think I said cry. I think I said cry.
Just a little. Got to touch it up just a little bit. Cry, laugh, crying, laughing. It's all the same thing. We're having a great time here on Bet On It per usual. I love this segment. Listen, every once in a while I need some joy in my life. You know, when you have like an under in an NBA game and it goes to overtime and you wake up at 3 a.m. and check the score and just want to chuck your phone across the room. That's how you know you're going to wake up and have a really bad day. But with you guys, it's a good one. Andy Lang, best bet, Thursday Night Football outside of that 5% play that you have up over at WagerTalk.com.
Well, let's hopefully laugh when we cash Brandon Ayuk over 50.5 yards receiving. Even in the blowout last week against Tampa Bay where they did not need to throw the ball much, Ayuk went for 57 yards on only 3 targets. And now with Deebo Samuel out there, there's a lot of touches. There's some touches available in the backfield. There's some touches available in the passing game. He's gone over this total in 7 out of his last 9 games. And against the Dolphins with Brock Purdy starting his first game ever, Ayuk had 5 catches on 9 targets. So he seemed to have pretty good rapport with Purdy. He's had a catch of 20 or more yards in 10 games this season, so he can break off big chunks of yards in a hurry just with one big catch. In the first game the 49ers played against the Seahawks, that was the Trey Lance game where he got hurt early. Garoppolo had to come in with basically no reps. He still had 63 yards on 5 catches in that game. Ayuk's played a game without Deebo Samuel this year. He went over 80 yards in that one. So look for Ayuk to be the main target in the 49ers pass game. I love him over 50.5 yards.
I'm all for that, Andy, as long as it doesn't affect my divisional under on Thursday night. He can catch those long balls, but maybe settle for a field goal there, Kyle Shanahan. Ariel Epstein, I know you've got a nice little best bet for us on Thursday night.
I'm looking to the 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey and his receptions and his receiving yards. You can get his over receptions at 4.5 and plus money. His receiving yards prop, you get it over 37.5, which is minus 115 in some spots. I like this over for both reasons. One, like Andy mentioned, there's no Deebo Samuel, so you're going to see a lot more touches in the passing game for different receivers, and that could include the pass-catching running back Christian McCaffrey. Aside for his first game against Kansas City, where he was a 49er, the other 3 games this year that he faced against teams that are bottom 10 in the league in receiving yards allowed to running backs, he went flying over this number. 55 receiving yards on 8 catches against the Rams, 67 receiving yards against Arizona on 7 catches, and then Miami 8 catches for 80 yards. That's why you could take the advantage of the plus money situation in receptions, but also for the receiving yards. This is a defense in Seattle that allows for the 3rd most receiving yards per game to running backs. There are different running backs, just like McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. There was one more that stood out to me. I think Javonte Williams was another one. All these different, and Austin Eckler, they all went way over this number of 37.5 receiving yards. Go take advantage of Christian McCaffrey tomorrow in the passing game. Now, there's one more because I love total tackle props, yet this one's not out yet. Keep a close eye. Andy and I have been crushing total tackle props, especially in prime time. It's just a market that I don't feel the books have really gotten spot on with yet. Seattle's strong safety Ryan Neal is the name I'm going to look for. This is exactly what I did on Monday Night Football here on Bet On It. I gave out Jalen Thompson for Arizona, their strong safety, as my best bet on the show for his over total tackles. It's the same idea. The strong safety is the one that's going to go after the running back or the tight end. That's where the 49ers are going to shift their focus to without Deebo Samuel. You're going to have McCaffrey catching balls out of the backfield. You're going to get your tight end George Kittle more involved in the passing game. So the strong safety having to defend both, just like Thompson did on Monday, could open up for some more tackles. He's had at least 7 total tackles or 6 total tackles in 3 of the last 4 games. So he's been heating up. Keep a close eye for that Ryan Neal over on total tackles. Not solo tackles, total tackles.
Love it. You and Andy have been crushing those. I love when we find those little nuggets that the books haven't quite caught up with. Very similar to, the first half over for the Eagles, right, Andy?
Yeah, first half over. They're now, they've only lost at 1 time this entire year. I would have loved to make that one a play, but the books are dancing around this 13.5 and 14.5. I only like playing these first half overs if it's below 2 touchdowns. I want 2 touchdowns to get us the over. We had a 5% cash on that last Sunday. So if you can find 13.5, by all means, take it. Looks like it's going to be a little bit cold in Chicago for the Eagles, but no wind. It doesn't look like inside the stadium. They should be good to go again.
Yeah, I know our producer Dan loves that one. He got to cash that one in about the first 35 seconds of the game that I was at with Ariel and him. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us every week here on Prop Shop at Bump Sports. For Andy on Twitter at Ariel Epstein. Make sure you're giving both of them a follow so you guys don't miss out on any of their great information. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, it's finally time for those best bets.
First time tuning into WagerTalk TV? How would you like a one-day all-access Picks Pass for only $1? Well, we have you covered. Bet On It gets 100,000 plus downloads, views, and listens each and every week across all platforms. From YouTube to Spotify, from Apple TV to iHeartRadio. So there's a good chance this is the first time you are tuning in, and an even better chance that you have not experienced the professional handicappers at WagerTalk and Sports Memo. And we want to change that. Whether you are new to sports betting or just tired of the game of the year and 100-unit locks, we have you covered. We leave all that nonsense for the other guys, as you won't find that here. As the most popular show on WagerTalk TV, we'd like to offer all Bet On It viewers that have not made a purchase at WagerTalk.com or SportsMemo.com this special offer. Use coupon WIN1 on a $39 one-day all-access pass and get it for only $1. So to all first-time users, just use coupon code WIN1 to get your first ever purchase at WagerTalk or SportsMemo for only $1. And welcome to the family.
It's best bet time here on Bet On It, and as I kind of alluded to, there was a really good shot. I was taking one of the barking dogs. I'm going to go with the Titans here. I'm going to take the 3. I think this is the ultimate buy low spot. If you listen to TNA with Ralph, he gave us some really good trends and angles that fit this as well. Marco, I'm just going to piggyback on everything he said in his Barking Dog segment. Los Angeles, yep, they are an atrocious defense. They give up 147 rushing yards per game. King Henry, I just need you to do what you do best. I know we've seen a roller coaster ride from you this year, but I expect to see a big ground and pound against this defense. Tennessee has played so much better on the road than they have at home, 5-1 in their last 6 road games. As we saw from the Chargers, this team is banged up. And the good news is, I don't even have to bet against Justin Herbert on my fantasy team because we secured a first-round bye. Let's go, baby. Derrick Henry, have your way. I don't need anything from the Chargers this week. Give me Tennessee plus a 3, and, of course, a little sprinkle on that money line. Marco D'Angelo, your best bet, please.
All right, Kelly, and for everybody that always calls me a homer, and they don't realize I go against the Steelers as much as I go with them. I know the team. We went against them last week with our teasers on Baltimore. I'm going against them for the best bet. I'm going to go money line. I know the line's only 2.5, but you can get this shop around 135, 140 on the money line, so we don't have to worry about the game falling on one. We know, Kelly, that never happens, right? NFL games falling on one. I always when I do Friday Westgate, I always say, Kelly said, tell you, John Murray, did you see that game landed on one last night? And so I always got to give that.
I went to
him.
2 back-to-back NFL games that landed one. He can never tell me anything ever again. Just peep the nerd chart from Ralph.
I gave you the shout-out on live radio in the Westgate Sportsbook. As soon as I mentioned your name, because they broadcasted it in the Sportsbook, everybody's looking, is Kelly here? Kelly here? No. Kelly's not here. Because they knew generally when you're there, there's free drinks involved because you're passing out drinks in the clubhouse. But for this game, Pittsburgh, last week they played Baltimore. This could have been my sandwich game as well, and I'll tell you why. You say, what's the sandwich? They played Baltimore last week. I get that. You got Carolina this week, okay, and they only play the Raiders next week. So why is this a sandwich game? Well, that Raider game next week is a primetime game. It's a special game. They scheduled it purposely for that week because it is the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception between Franco Harris and those Raiders when he scooped it out and ran it back for the touchdown. So, yeah, you come off your hated division rival Baltimore last week. You're going on the road to play a Carolina team. Both teams are 5-8, but one of those 5-8 teams is very much alive in the playoffs, and that is Carolina because they're only one game behind Tampa Bay, and they play Tampa Bay one more time this year. And if they win that game and drop into a tie with Tampa, guess what? They're going to the playoffs because they already beat Tampa earlier in the year. Who would have ever thought that Carolina would control their own destiny to the playoffs after, first, they fire their coach. 2, they set their quarterback out on the front lawn with a sign, free to a good home. And thirdly, they traded away their best player. Everybody put this team, stuck a fork in them, and what a story it would be if they make the playoffs. They got a legitimate shot. They run the football well. And Sam Darnold, like him or not, the team's 2-0 behind him. Look at Washington. You know, Heineke doesn't have great stats, but there's just something about they're winning with them. And I think you're seeing the same thing with Carolina. I'm going to ride them. Pittsburgh's having trouble stopping the run. What's Carolina done since Darnold come in to start? How about 185 yards rushing 2 weeks ago against Denver, a very good defense, and then 223 last week against Seattle, a bad defense. This isn't the steel curtain. It's not the defense of old for the Steelers. Take Carolina money line. They roll. I've got them 24-16.
Marco, did it hurt you to say that? Did it hurt
No,
right
because
here?
you know what? Just like I tell Lori when we go to the hockey games and we're sitting behind the net, 11 rows up, the Golden Knights didn't pay for those tickets. It's the bets I made going with and against the Golden Knights that paid for those tickets. So, yeah, and I got no problem.
Love it. Joe Raineri, I need your favorite first half bet of the week.
Ooh, interesting. Well, if we're gonna go first halves, I'm gonna go first half Jets Detroit, but that's a different story there. I am also going to go, and I'm going to take a total as the best bet this week here, guys. And you heard me as my dog is Jacksonville here. I'm going to go with the over in the game because I think if Jacksonville is going to have an opportunity to get it done, they're going to have to go up and over in this game. You've got two offenses right now. You've got, I believe the Cowboys ranked number 10 with just about 360 yards a game. And yeah, you've got right behind them at number 11 is Jacksonville at 358 yards a game. I know much has been made about the pass rush of Dallas and yeah, Dallas on the road is a little bit different. I think both offenses are going to have some success here. I think this should have been closer to the 49 and a half mark. I do think we're going to be in the 50s when this thing is all said and done. So I've got no problem going up and over the 47 and a half with Jacksonville and Dallas. I think we got a shootout on our hands here in Jacksonville this week, and I think it's going to be an awful lot of fun to watch.
All right, Joe, throwing a little curveball there. Well, now you threw me off my loop. I don't even know how to close the segment. But I do know that I still have to recap the games because Marco makes me. I always try to shorten the show some way. And he said, Kelly, what about all the guys that just scroll to the end? So we're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, it's a recap.
Boom.
Have you checked out all the new handicappers at WagerTalk? If not, here's your chance. You can take 50% off your first daily or 3-day all-access purchase at WagerTalk using coupon code TRYWT. Our new roster of experts is 30 deep, covering sports from all around the world, giving you tons of options to choose from. All you have to do to redeem this offer is go to WagerTalk.com, choose a handicapper of your choice, and use coupon code TRYWT at checkout, saving 50% on your first purchase.
All right, gonna kind of mix it up here. I got a special treat for you guys that just scroll to the end and don't actually watch the show. That's right, you get Marco Claus twice. Getting a 30-day all-access pass from Marco, normally $299. Get all of it. That's every single sport for 30 days, just $199. Coupon code MD199. NBA, NHL, NFL, bowl games. Marco, I'm looking forward to these bowl games because I need some help. Last year, 13-4. You crushed the Bulls, and fortunately, I have to pick every single one for my bowl pool, and I am already stressing about all that, but that's for the college segment. All right, fine. Now I guess I'll recap it now that I spammed your feed with some more Marco Claus, who might be, well, no, I like Marco Barco better. Never mind. Okay, Thursday Night Football, San Fran, Seattle. Marco and I agree on the dog plus 3.5, but Joe and I really agree on the under 43.5. Saturday night primetime, Miami and Buffalo. Of course, I took the under in a divisional game. Joe said 7.5 is too much for those Dolphins, even though it's going to be cold. Marco said, don't overthink it. Just tease Buffalo down to 1.5. Sunday night primetime, that's right, little revenge game for the team that tied. Both teams have to hate one another for that one. I took the under then. I'm taking the under now, 40.5, and Joe agrees with me. Marco said maybe that bye week killed some momentum for the Washington Football Commanders. So he's going to take the 4.5 with the Giants. Speaking of teasers, 2 teams, 6-point teasers, Baltimore, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Those are your 3 options for the Wong teasers this week. Are you high? 37. 37! I'm going to have to get high to take that under, Joe. But it's a divisional under, and I play them all. Good thing Marco's Deli is going to feed me once I do get high because I'm going to need to eat away my sorrows betting against the Eagles another week. My God. Chicago plus 9, Marco. Barking Dogs, Tennessee is my favorite with Marco there because it's my best bet. But I also was very, very close to playing Joe's Barking Dog of Jacksonville plus 4. Speaking of that Jacksonville Cowboys game, Joe said not high enough. Give him over 47.5. And Marco's betting against his team once again. He's taking Carolina on the money line. All right, guys, we had a fun week. Only a few more weeks left. Bet on it. What am I going to do with all my free time? From Marco, Joe, our producer Dan, our producer Will, Ralph, Ariel, Andy, and everybody that works their ass off on the show. See you guys on Monday. Until then, let's bet on it.